Welcome to the bottom line. My name is Benjamin Poole.
And I'm Gareth Soloway. How you guys doing today?
All right, okay, we can
Now, we just want to be close to our pictures. All right. Anyways, so
we've got an exciting show for you guys. Man, Bitcoin just dropped to 65,000. The semis are still strong as heck. And then we got the cruise lines. They're kind of setting sail.
We got that short in smart money stocks and ETFs on RCL. That's getting nice play today, baby.
Down 7 or 8% at the moment.
Gotta love charts. We'll look at that chart because the levels I want to show people are incredible. Like, charts are freaking amazing.
They are.
Charts.
To charts.
All right. So what are we going to start with today? What do you want to do?
I don't know. You got the SPY up.
All right, let's go to the SPY.
There?
Come on over here. All right, so markets today, we saw some downside, right? And the key here is that we saw these worries overnight from Japan and the intervention and the central bank kind of starting to taper back their buying of bonds and their run off the balance sheet beginning there. But then we also saw worries out of France, right? France's geopolitical stuff going on there. And so we started out lower, but just like the market at this point is just about Nvidia, right? Let's be fair. Ben, does it matter? Anything else? Does anything else in the market matter, or is it just Nvidia?
Well, the last couple days it was Apple, but now it's back to Nvidia.
Oh yeah, so Apple too. Okay, fair enough.
Well, it was, but now it's just Nvidia.
All right, so here's your Nvidia chart, and really what we're saying here is that the weighting of $3+ trillion companies, Apple, Microsoft, and Nvidia, they make up so much of the S&P and the Nasdaq that it doesn't matter what cruise lines are doing. I mean, obviously it matters if you're invested in the cruise lines. You're not liking it today much.
But they're not sinking the markets.
That's right. So Ben, what do you got up here? You got Apple?
I have Apple. So, man, Apple had a crazy run.
Dude.
Like Gareth was talking about, charts are just insane, right? So here we have this beautiful trend line. So you've got this pivot low right here, pivot low right here. So that allows us to actually bring out the parallel channel tool, draw our lines here, and then we extend it up. And then we have these two pivot tops right here. And look at this. It
literally went right there.
Yeah, it broke out of that parallel channel. However, it's getting a pullback. So go ahead and
for a split second, right?
For a split second, yeah.
I think that's important. Yesterday. It literally pierces, which pierces of levels happen all the time, right? But it's, again, look at how it was rejected there. It was like as if once it got there, the big seller, institutional sellers were just like, nope, you're not getting out of here. Slam down into all the retail buying, which is what happens usually. What do you got here? What are you bringing up here? Let's go.
Now I'm zooming in. So this is what happened,
See that tail right there? Or wick, I guess it's the top. It's all wick.
So in these 2 days alone, we had almost the most amount of volume traded in Apple in such a long time.
That's crazy, man.
Talk about a sell-off on the news, the WWDC, right? And then all of a sudden, institutions say, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. Huge volume spikes because why is that? They need exit liquidity. So they pump it up, and then all of a sudden, right now, this is the high, right?
WWDC, I call it when it's me, WWGD. What would Gareth do?
Okay.
You know? So, all right, anyways. But
so,
you guys,
we got a pullback.
Yeah, we got a beautiful pullback. All right, let's jump over here. Let's keep this thing moving here. So let's look at RCL. All right, so RCL here, Royal Caribbean. Take a look at these two levels, right? So this is a short that we have in stock, smart money stocks and ETFs. You can see, again, look at the channel. So this is a parallel channel, but we also had the secondary trend line. And I want to show you guys where this secondary trend line comes from. In fact, I guess I have to go to a weekly chart. Look at that. I mean, this is... this is how cool this stuff is, right? So here, boom. Look at this. Ben, we got to look at this too. Oh. All right. So like you take, like we're going back to 2012 when most of you were wee little kiddies here, right? I was still old, but you guys were probably young. Anyways, right through here, here, and here, then you had this, and look, retrace to the scene of the crime and the little wedge pattern right there literally marks the top. X marks the top, baby, right there. And then it's selling off. And the idea is now is what you're doing. If you're short this like I am with members, what are we looking to see? We want to see this break this lower trend line down here, right? So it's coming down. It'll come down here. This will be support. So we don't know if it's going to break. But if this breaks, watch out below. Then that really starts to get a bigger move down. But either way, being able to pinpoint these tops and bottoms, so freaking cool in charting. And again, it just gives you power to make money.
Yeah, and it looks like we've got a downside target. So we've got this, wick right here, and it looks like it matches up pretty well with this low wick right here. Mm-hmm. So probably the $115 level will be where you get your initial bounce before an eventual rollover. So once it gets that bounce, we'll have to see what the charts end up doing. But yeah, that's a beautiful chart.
That's an awesome one, man.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, what are you doing now? What are we doing over here?
So we have CCL,
Carnival.
so Carnival Cruise Line. It's actually in this nice wedge pattern right now.
Sorry, I'm cracking a drink here.
All right, so we've got this pivot high right here, this pivot high. So just like this chart, this is an upsloping wedge pattern, and this is a down, well, kind of just a traditional wedge pattern. So you can connect this low right here, these pivots right here. Excuse me, let me draw that a little bit better. Pivot here, kind of kiss it here. This was the third hit. So CCL, it's got a little bit more downside, probably about to 1519 level. Based on the fact that this would be the fourth hit, this actually favors the downside as well. So this chart, I'm looking for a downside move to probably about $10, which would be a 50% drop from that level. So CCL is looking very, very bearish as well, especially if the economy continues to slow down. Not as many people taking trips on Carnival. Disney probably, but
no, I agree. I think so. So one thing I want to show you guys, jumping over here real quick, we're going to fast fire. I love this thing on Fridays. Fast fire with Ben and Gareth over here. So here, check this out. So we were just talking about the cruise lines, which is travel. Well, look at UAL, United Airlines. Ben, check this out. So look at this gap right up here, guys. This was a gap fill right here. You can see I had annotated. I didn't do this just now. This is like literally a chart that I had posted out to members at Verified Investing over here. Gap fill resistance tagged. Boom, right there. And again, there's your gap right there. What happens to price down? Now, you could argue that it's not the greatest, but you could argue that maybe there's also a head and shoulders pattern right here. And if this breaks, boom, right there. So this is interesting because now the travel stocks are starting to suffer a little bit after being on these meteoric runs, especially RCL and CCL. The cruise lines have just been unbelievable. But if it's correct that the economy is slowing, you got to figure people aren't going to be able to afford as many cruises, and that's why these things need to come in. But just a great chart on UAL here.
Yeah, and then just like you have this gap fill over here, which is a lot of support, resistance, you've got this gap fill right here that we're looking at around the $42 level, and you're going to get a pretty solid bounce off of that level. And so, to be honest, you could actually play this as a downside target, and that would be your take profit. Wait for maybe a retrace to the scene of the crime, and then eventual rollover, right? So that's the nice thing about being swing traders is you can kind of focus in on what's going on in the overall macro sector, and then play accordingly. So,
absolutely. All right, we got to talk about some Bitcoin action, Ben, because people are going to get their panties in a bunch if we don't. All right, here we go.
It looks kind of similar pattern.
Yeah. So remember what I've been talking about in the game plan, guys, is that this orange line was a major line as long as you don't get a close below. If you close below and violate this on a closing basis, notice how it pierced, but didn't close below, here, touched it right here. This starts to signal weakness. And one of the things I brought up today in the game plan was that you had gold up, you had the dollar up, you had bonds up because they were safety places to run. I noted in today's game plan that we did not see that in Bitcoin. Not good, right? So it's not a safety hedge, and we're seeing de-risking here as Bitcoin comes down. So if this gets below here on a daily closing basis, especially if it confirms, you have a little bit of a level right in here. This is probably first support right in this range. Looks like around 62, 63. If it gets through that, you have a little level here, but you might be headed down to this lower range, which actually I would be a buyer at down in that low 50, right around 50 even number, 50,000 even number. But this is really interesting. Now, granted, Bitcoin hasn't closed the day yet, so maybe they save it and push it back above by the close, 8 p.m. tonight Eastern time. But that's an interesting one. You have any other things you want to point out here?
No, I was just going to say that this midline seems to be a lot of price action right here. A lot. And so that 58, probably by the time it gets down to that $5,800 level, is probably going to be pretty good support. And then again, probably a retrace to scene of the crime, probably back up to 65 if we end up getting this confirmation, and then the bottom level of this parallel channel.
So a lot of, basically what you're thinking is here, and then maybe down there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Right, just based on the charts, right? And you're going to get some support along the way as you had resistance on the top, right? So your support, like you were saying, you got this green bar. There's probably a lot of buying pressure in here, and so when people get down to their break evens, they're probably going to take their money off the table. Or if you missed out on this big run right here, you'll probably be interested in buying at this level. So yeah, it's pretty interesting levels on the Bitcoin chart. It's today at the end of the close of the day, it's going to be It's line in the sand, really.
It is, man.
Oh,
it is.
man.
So why don't you bring up, what should we look at now?
Adobe.
Oh, Adobe.
So Adobe had this, it's up 14% on the day. So it had earnings yesterday. And
I'm trying to get a sponsor. Cayman Jack Margaritas, baby.
Oh, can you do that on TV?
Sure, man.
All right.
It's Friday. I think anything goes on Friday.
Yeah, so here we have Adobe. This is the daily chart. So you had this close. First thing I want to point out is if you look at Adobe, it was down since the last earnings. So it had this big earnings drop, and then it consolidated lower. So it put in this nice wedge pattern. It finally broke to the upside. But on this earnings, it actually favored the upside. Well, you saw what a couple other stocks did. So this actually did favor an upside move. So our next target, or at least my next target, is about the 775 level. You got this nice gap fill, and I think that it could get there. It doesn't have any news as far as like a stock split or anything like that, which is all the craze these days. You got AVGO who's doing a 10-for-1 stock split, but 571, that's going to be a really, really big level for me. And then if you notice, you've got additional resistance right here with this price action. And then I don't know if you can see it, but you've got this a little bit more price action as well. This was a lot of support, broke below, resistance, and it's still below. And so it's going to maintain that resistance level for me on Adobe. But yeah, great move after hours yesterday. And it continued to push up a little bit today.
So I'm just looking at a couple. I was looking at the VIX, but VIX has faded again today, so there's not much. You know, initially overnight it was popping up. We had a decent gain, but honestly it's getting propelled back down. I continue to think, and again, I think we can, unless there's other stocks, I think we can kind of bring it to a close, but I will just say this, is that for the most part, this market is dependent on these mega trillion-dollar companies. Nvidia is doing okay. Apple is pulling back, but it had a monster week, but it is coming back in a little bit. And then we obviously want to keep an eye on Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, and Google, all of those. But, Netflix, we should talk about double top on Netflix. All right, one more then. One more.
Go ahead, Gareth.
Come on, guys,
Bring
over
it in.
here.
Bring it in.
All right, well, you got to zoom out so I can see the double top.
All right, hold on. Let me.
There we go. Now
all right, there we go.
You got, all right.
Is this the daily? It's actually.
Here, scroll.
Here's
Use
the double
this down
top.
here.
What are you looking for?
Just scroll, pull it. No, the other way. Just pull it that way. There you go. Keep going. All right, well, not too far. All right, there we go. There we go. So what we're looking at here, Ben and I have to coordinate. It's all good. This is, whoa. All right, so on Netflix, watch this next week, guys. You have your double top on Netflix right here. That's a big level coming into play. That should be major resistance. Again, double top is a key one. Look at the drop on Netflix and the rally back up, and we're getting very close to that. What is that, around 690 or so? Somewhere in that vicinity. But that's going to be
700.
That's going to be a big level. You got the even number of 700. You almost wonder, though, would they try to pull a stock split?
At this point, I mean,
it just works so well. You just announced you could be the shittiest, the worst company in the world, and you could just do a stock split, and your stock will go up.
Well, this has given additional investors, an opportunity to get into the stock.
Oh, because it's cheaper.
Because it's cheaper, right? And so it increases the value of it.
Oh, I think he's being funny. Remember, it doesn't really increase the value.
It doesn't
it's
change
all
the
a
fundamentals
facade.
at all. Yeah.
But the idea is people do it because, or companies do it because they think like someone that only has $100, if this was only $67, they could buy a share this way. But these days, honestly, Robinhood, you buy partial shares. It doesn't really, not quite as big of an impact. But it certainly causes additional upside. We saw that with Broadcom recently. We've seen it with so many. CMG is splitting, I think, in 2 weeks at the end of June.
It had a rally the last couple of days, too.
Yeah, it is. So stock splits, just be aware, guys.
Nvidia.
It does cause upside because people FOMO into it, but it doesn't really change the value. Just remember that.
Right, but you do get...
The more you know. The more you know.
I was going to say, but, Nvidia, you did get 10 for 1. I mean, who doesn't want 10 instead of 1?
I
right?
agree, man.
Yeah.
If I had,
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to The Bottom Line. Keep in mind that this is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please do your own research. Thank you again for watching, and
that's the bottom line.